What's up, everybody? Natalie here. It's Sunday, time for Sunday Scaries. How's everyone's weekend been? Let me know in the chat. I've had a great weekend. A couple of my friends got married. So Friday night there was a party, and then Saturday night was the wedding, and it was great to see people from all over and to celebrate my friends as they vowed to be together forever, which is like a crazy thing to do. So I'm really happy for them, and they had really tasty vegan options. They basically had it catered by one of my favorite vegan restaurants. So I ate very well, which is not the case at a lot of weddings, as I'm sure you are all familiar with that struggle. So today we are going to continue some more of what we were doing last week with this leadership book. And before we get into that, I may actually wait a few minutes for more people to join because not that many people are here right now. So I'll answer some questions from the chat. What's up, Corn King? I think of you every time I have corn, which is most days because I put it in my salads at lunch just to add some extra carbs in there, which is very good. How's everyone's weekend been? All right. So I wanted to start today by actually responding to a comment that I got on the last stream that we had about leadership. And I think this is just one of the dumbest comments that I've ever received. And if you follow my work, you know that I get a lot of really dumb comments. And this is up there for one of the dumbest. So I'm going to go ahead and read it and just talk about why I think it is stupid. So let me share my screen. All right, so here is what this person said. They said, "We don't need leaders. We animal lib activists have evolved past that BS. In fact, that's the last thing we need. ARA has never had leaders. It is and always has been a collective movement. I wonder how you can support ALF and think leaders are a topic that even needs discussing. Also, there is no such thing as an ex-vegan. They were never truly vegan in the first place. No one who genuinely empathizes with the animal holocaust could ever go back to it. I think the education you have had is making you think like you are. Education makes people in the mindset of leaders and followers and overanalyze like you have been doing recently. Unsubscribing." So, of course, I said bye because I don't want subscribers like that. I think that that's a really kind of just a bad way of thinking. So, I'm going to explain why I think it's bad, kind of going through one by one. So, when they say we don't need leaders because animal liberation activists have evolved past that, I just think that's so ridiculous. It shows a level of arrogance that I see in other animal advocates, just thinking that, they're so much better than everyone else because they're doing this thing. And it is admirable work, but that doesn't mean that animal rights advocates are not subject to the same human biases and struggles as anyone else. I assume that this person has not spent much time with animal rights advocates, and I have, and a lot of them are really great. I really respect a lot of them. But, there's some people who are just complete idiots. They're creating drama. They're, trying to tear people down. They're acting like assholes. And I think it's ridiculous to pretend like they're somehow more evolved than anyone else. We're not more evolved just because we're vegans. We just know more about the meat industry. We care more about morality. I wish I could know exactly what the difference is between vegans and non-vegans so that we could create more vegans. But I just really hate the arrogance in this comment. And I think that that's a huge problem. Then they ask how I could support the ALF while also thinking about leadership. And I would just ask, like, who's the one who's in charge of the ALF? I mean, I know there's not like a hierarchical structure, but there are people who organize the actions. There are people who take the risks. I would say that those people are leaders. And this person accused me of having like some weird view of leadership, but I think that they have a weird view of leadership as someone who just like dominates others, is obsessed with hierarchy. I agree that that's not, I mean, I agree that that is a problem, but that's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about leadership. I'm talking about you rising to your potential, influencing others, being able to build community, organize protests, create movements. These are absolutely things that the vegan movement needs. And I think that's what's so great about direct action everywhere is that they must emphasize leadership pretty heavily because people join and maybe they're not comfortable leading protests or giving speeches. And after a while, they totally are. They're amazing leaders. And I think that that's exactly what we need. We need to empower everyone to feel like they can be leaders. And then we don't have to worry about the hierarchical stuff either. So then they say that you can't be an ex-vegan, you were never truly vegan in the first place. I don't even think I mentioned ex-vegans in my last stream, so I don't know why they brought that up, but you absolutely can be vegan and then go back to not being vegan. People change their minds all the time. You could say maybe they were never vegan, but who knows? You know, we can't know someone's internal experience. It is something people change their minds about. And yeah, it sucks. I personally don't know how people could go back to eating animals after seeing Dominion or knowing what they know or going to slaughterhouses, but it does happen. And pretending like it doesn't happen, I think, is just a little bit delusional. And then they say the education you have had is making you think like you are. Education makes people in the mindset of leaders and followers and overanalyze like you have been doing. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the way I think has to do with my education. I think you could say that about everyone. Like every book I read is going to influence how I think, and everything I watch is going to influence something else. And that's completely normal. And there's nothing wrong. It sounds like they're like demonizing education. I hope that's not the case because there's nothing wrong with education. It's something that we should all be pursuing. You should always be learning, always be working on yourself and reading. And, there's nothing wrong with that. So, like I said, I'm really glad that that person unsubscribed because part of why I make the type of videos I do is to attract a certain type of people that I like as my subscribers. Most people I meet in person who like my content, I think are really cool people. I've become friends with many of them. So if someone doesn't like the things I'm talking about, I don't want them watching my videos. Simple as that. I would much rather have people who do like what I'm doing and have a smaller community than a big one of people who are idiots. So I just wanted to start with that comment and reemphasize that leadership is important and that we do need strong leaders in this movement. If you look back through any social justice movement throughout history, strong leaders emerged. And yes, I don't love hierarchy. I don't think it's that, like, I understand the desire to avoid hierarchy. And I think that leadership can still have a place within that by empowering everyone to feel like they can have the influence that they want. And like I said, we're trying to change the humanity's relationship with animals. That is a huge task, and the more leaders we have, the better. So that's why I'm doing these streams and encouraging people to think about leadership. So let's get right into it. We covered 10 laws last week, so we're going to do the remaining 11 today. I'm going to try to move through them a little quicker than I did last week because some people said my stream was a bit scattered, which, I think is okay, but we'll see how this goes. Number 11, the law of the inner circle. Let me know if the audio on this sounds good and everything like that. Oh, I'm not even sharing my screen. Whoops. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I'm still getting used to streaming. Okay.
7. The law of the inner circle. No single leader can do all 21 things that are needed to lead effectively. That's why every leader needs a team of people. We naturally tend to surround ourselves with either people we like or people with whom we are comfortable. Few people give enough thought to how those closest to them impact their effectiveness or leadership potential. The best thing you can do is to bring a few key people into your inner circle who possess strengths in your areas of weakness.
All right. So the law of the inner circle. I'm sure y'all have heard this quote before that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think that is there's some flaw with that saying because I feel like you shouldn't be kind of trying to use people just to get better. It just feels a little weird to me. But there is some truth in that. Like if all of your friends are total degenerates, then you're going to end up being a degenerate. And that's certainly true in my life, especially, 5, 10 years ago. I was hanging out with people who just drink all the time and, weren't really serious about careers or anything like that. And I definitely was not serious about my career and drank a lot. And, I'm glad that that phase in my life is over. It was fun while it lasted. Now I'm surrounded by people who do care and do care about animals. And with Pro Animal Future, we have a small support team. And, there's five, I basically have five coworkers, and they're all really great. And I feel like I can rely on them as my inner circle, and that we do have different strengths and weaknesses in terms of leadership that we kind of went through. Um, During our conference, and I think stuff like that is super helpful because, yeah, you're never gonna be good at everything, so identifying where you are weak and others are strong is a great way to make sure that you're, living up to your potential. Alright, got a couple questions in the chat. Someone's asking about Alex O'Connor. Do I think he was ever vegan? So, he's a little tougher because he always came more from the approach of minimizing suffering, a utilitarian perspective, and I can definitely see how that's not totally in line with the vegan ethos, which is about ending the use of or being against animal exploitation. I'm not sure if Alex ever fully bought into the vegan definition, if he even really considered himself vegan. I think he did, but I'm not sure. I don't want to say he was never vegan or he was vegan because, like I said, I don't know him. I don't know what his internal experience surrounding that was. But yeah, I definitely think that ex vegans are a thing. No injustice lasts forever. Are you a degenerate? Maybe you're a degenerate. You don't seem like it. You're always working really hard for the animals and putting up stickers, making content. So I think that you're probably not a degenerate, or maybe a mild one. All right, that looks like all the questions. ALF leaders, I always thought it was a leaderless network of people. It is technically leaderless, yeah, but I'm just saying the people who organize what they do, to me, that is leadership. I don't think of leadership in terms of titles. I think about it in terms of who's the first to kind of take action and things like that. All right, next law 12, the law of empowerment.
12. The law of empowerment. To lead others well, we must help them to reach their potential. That means being on their side, encouraging them, giving them power, and helping them to succeed. The main ingredient for empowering others is a high belief in people. If you believe in others, they will believe in themselves. 13.
I love that law. I think it's so great because that's so true. I've had jobs in the past where I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job and I never get any sort of encouragement, or no one tells me I'm doing a good job. And then I start to doubt myself and I feel like it just makes me want to work less hard. And I know that's kind of ridiculous. Like, I should just want to work hard to want to work hard. But, humans are emotional creatures and we like to be praised and told we're doing a good job. So, something I always try to do is if someone sends me a video to edit or a project or anything, I tell them that it's good. I encourage them and give them some feedback if they need it. But mostly, you want to empower people. If someone works really hard on a project and then they send it to you and then you change everything or change even really anything about it, then they're going to feel like it wasn't their own anymore. So I almost think it's better if someone gives me something to like put the version that's not quite as good up, just to make sure that they feel empowered. And I know I keep talking about Pro Animal Future, but we are a volunteer led organization. So that means, we really need volunteers. They're amazing and they're such hard workers. And I think telling them that really goes a long way because people are going to feel so much more inspired if they feel empowered to take action. And what we really want is to create a network of leaders who can get big stuff done in the space of animal rights. That's the goal. So the law of empowerment is super important for that. Got a couple questions. Garuda Legends. Natalie Fulton, what is your favorite vegan meal? I've been actually liking to cook vegan food for the vegans I love and respect. That's great. I'm glad that you're cooking more vegan food. I know that you have in the past as well. My favorite vegan meal, lately, I've been really into tofu scramble. Rainbow Plant Life has this killer recipe for tofu scramble, and I like to just add a bunch of veggies into it, mushrooms, peppers, jalapeno, and have it on some really nice sourdough bread. That's been amazing, but I eat kind of the same stuff every day. I eat a lot of tofu, a lot of soy curls. This buffalo dairy chicken is really tasty. I had that today. So, I mix it up. But yeah, tofu scramble is my favorite right now. Vomsi asks, why do we have to stick to talking about veganism if there are other ways that can effectively minimize most animal suffering? Our ultimate goal is to save maximum animals, isn't it? Absolutely. I 100% agree. I think we should probably talk about veganism less because it's not having the results that we wanted. It's not going to be fast enough to turn people vegan. We can't wait for that. So, yeah, if there are more effective ways to help animals, I think we should definitely do those. So, what could that be? That could be rescuing animals, that could be doing pressure campaigns. The ballot initiatives that we're doing, I think, is really great for that. Yeah, we absolutely should be pursuing other routes and not just talking about veganism a lot. Although talking about veganism is fine sometimes as well. It kind of depends, what people want to do. All right, next law, the law of the picture.
The law of the picture. Good leaders must communicate the vision clearly, creatively, and continually to make the picture clear. But that's not enough. The leader must also live the vision. He must be an example. Followers may doubt what leaders say, but they usually believe what they do, and they imitate it.
Yeah, stuff like that is so important because it's kind of that old saying, right? Do as I say, not as I do. And that never actually works because if people see you doing something, then they're going to emulate you. I used to have this office job and the boss was always super late in the morning. And so everyone else started showing up late because why would people be on time if the boss is not even going to do that? Right. So people emulate leaders and it's important to set a really good example. The part about communicating long-term vision also seems really important to me, although I feel like we haven't done that the best at Pro Animal Future. Maybe I need to work that more into the content just to say, this is our 10-year plan to ban factory farming in 10 states in the US. That is such a great vision. And I do think we need to communicate that a little better to everyone just so they know that we're not just working on like a short-term campaign. We have very large goals and it's important to communicate those. Garuda, would you be okay with me making the tofu scramble and making saute mushrooms with cold pressed olive oil and hot peppers? Absolutely, as long as you make it with no animal products. Do whatever you want. I don't care how you make your tofu scramble. Um, all right. This law is one I had a bit more difficulty with, so I'm curious to hear what you guys think about it.
14. The law of buy-in. People don't at first follow worthy causes. They follow worthy leaders who promote worthy causes they believe in. People buy into the leader first, then the leader's vision.
To me, this doesn't seem super compatible with animal rights because I feel like most people buy into the animal rights stuff before they really care much about the leaders. People don't go vegan because of certain influencers, although sometimes they say it. They go vegan because of the animals, and the influencer just happened to communicate for the animals in a better way. That being said, I am trying to think like if people do buy into me, then maybe I'll have more success with kind of what I'm trying to do. So maybe it's kind of changed how I think about different content. I'm making stuff that's kind of a bit more personal and not just always about campaigns so that I can feel like more of a personal connection with people. Because if that is what they get behind, then I want to provide options for people who are like that. So, I think it could be useful. Someone asked, "Do you plan to do any activism in Seattle?" Maybe one day I'll do activism wherever I go. Whenever I travel, I do activism there. I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to go to Seattle again. I was just there in 2019. That's actually a long time ago. I know that we'll definitely be running campaigns in Portland in the future, so I'm probably more likely to go to Portland. But yeah, that could be really cool. Next thing I'm going to is Washington, D.C. for the Animal Vegan Advocacy Conference, which I'm very excited about. So that's the next trip on the docket. 15, the law of victory.
15. The law of victory. Leaders who practice the law of victory believe that anything less than success is unacceptable, and they have no plan B. With that mindset, they embrace the vision and approach the challenges with the resolve to take their people to victory.
Yeah, we want people who are going to win, especially when we're talking about winning big stuff for the animals, winning campaigns. shutting down slaughterhouses. That's obviously what we want. I think it's a little unrealistic to say that you will always win, because obviously there's going to be situations where you're not necessarily winning. But we were kind of talking about that because we have this election that's going to happen in November, these ballot initiatives. And if we lose one of the ballot initiatives, we think we might lose the slaughterhouse one. We're pretty sure we can pass the fur. But even if we get, let's say we get 40% of votes, that would technically be a loss, but we could still frame it as a win, because we can say it's amazing that 40% of voters in Denver supported this initiative. We're going to run it again. And next time we're going to get a higher percentage. So I think that winning is almost more in the framing than the actual winning itself. A great example of this would be Wayne from DXC. He lost this open rescue trial in Sonoma and he had to go to jail, but he framed it as a win because now he can appeal it and that'll have bigger legislative change for the animals. So just because you technically lose doesn't mean that you actually lose if you look at it in the right way. Someone asks, I know there isn't a lot of money in activism. How do you manage your expenses and budget travel for activism? Yeah, I mean, budgeting is super important. I actually do make a good amount of money now. Full transparency, Pro Animal Future goes by the living wage calculator. And last year it was $43,000. It went up like crazy. So now I'm getting $53,000 a year, which is more money than I've ever made. And I'm going to save a huge percentage of it. I've been able to lower my cost of living very low. And I think everyone should do that. Just don't buy clothes. Don't, travel for fun. I pretty much only travel for activism or visiting family. Cook at home most of the time. Just basic money saving stuff, I think really goes a long way. So I've always been able to save pretty effectively and budget for travel. There's also, if you go to an AAM convergence, they actually pay for the housing. So you just have to cover your flight. So a lot of these organizations help you out with money as well. DXC's response in Jane Unchained live stream to what do you say to people who ask what the alternative to factory farm is? Small animal farmers want to compete and they are struggling. What? Yeah. So she's asking about like basically in Sonoma County, they're trying to do a factory farm ban. There are a good number of factory farms in this county. And I guess when they're talking to people about it, sometimes they kind of perpetuate this humane myth and they say, well, we're just closing factory farms. The small farms are going to be okay. And I don't like that. I think it's better to be upfront and say that we're starting with factory farms, but we want to ban all animal farming in the future because none of it's okay. Because, yeah, we don't want people thinking that it's okay to do this stuff to animals as long as they have a happy life. That's such a ridiculous belief because these animals are only alive for 6 weeks to 12 months. That's not a life that is worth living to me. I don't think we should be killing animals when they're babies when we don't need to. So I think it's really important with these factory farm bans that we do make it clear that we're not stopping at factory farming. We want to ban slaughter. We want to ban animal farming in general, but you also kind of want to make it more palatable to people who are going to vote for it. So I understand why they're doing that. I just think it's I just want to be upfront with people and transparent and let them know that no animal farming is okay. Do you agree with these people who do extreme activism, like show up in grocery stores and scream and try to argue with people? Sure. So I think there are a lot of different contexts in which that is happening. If someone's just going to a grocery store to antagonize people, I don't necessarily think that's a great use of time. But if you're doing it as part of a larger campaign, an example of this would be, Trader Joe's was lying about their chicken producer. They were saying it was all ethical and humane, and these birds were actually dying on the floor. They had all these terrible diseases. So some activists organized a campaign trying to get Trader Joe's to drop this particular supplier. Then they went into Trader Joe's and they protested there. I think that's great. I just think it should be part of a long-term strategy because there is some evidence that these types of disruptive actions right now, since there's such a low level of public support for veganism, these disruptions can actually hurt the movement. If there were more public support, then we can start doing disruptions. So I think it's almost something we should wait to do later, unless it's part of a specific campaign.
16. The law of the big mo. When you have momentum on your side, the future looks bright. Obstacles appear small, and troubles seem inconsequential. Many times, momentum is the only thing that makes the difference between losing and winning. A leader should not wait for the organization to develop momentum on its own. The best tools to encourage it are removing demotivating factors, praising effort, and celebrating accomplishments.
Momentum is hugely important. I think we all know this intuitively. There are some days where I wake up and I have a great morning and I get a lot done. And then the rest of the day is so much easier because I've built that momentum and I feel good about it. Other days where I'm tired, I wake up late, and it just kind of starts the day on a bad foot. So we can definitely see how momentum is useful, especially when you look in terms of building movements. It's a lot easier to convince someone to come out to a protest if your last protests have gotten the fur stores to ban or to agree to stop selling fur. Then you've won. People are excited about it. They're more likely to come out. There's a better vibe. So I think momentum is definitely important and something that we need to think about. The issue is that it seems kind of hard to just create momentum out of nowhere. If you are in a slump, turning that slump around seems to be difficult. So I guess praising effort and focusing on wins is a good way to do that. When you go for dinner with your non-vegan friends, do you always split the bill even though they've paid for your vegan food in the past? I really am clueless in these situations. Wow. No, I would never split the bill with if there's non-vegan food on it. I would absolutely make sure that I was not paying for any animal products. I don't really go out to eat with non-vegan friends anymore. I don't like it. I don't wanna be around animal products that much. If I have to, like at the wedding, I had to sit with some people who were eating non-vegan food, and it's not like a huge problem, but I wouldn't go out to eat with someone if I knew they were gonna be eating animals. I would ask them to eat vegan or yeah, definitely split the check at the very least. That being said, a lot of people like going out to eat more than I do. If that's kind of the main social thing you do, then obviously these restrictions are going to be harder. I personally don't like going out to eat. I don't like sitting in restaurants and people have to bring you stuff and like I don't know. I just need more space to like move about freely, especially if there's a lot of people at the table and then it's like hard to talk to people. I would much rather get takeout or hang out at a park or go to a bar than get dinner with people. Doesn't Natalie have a moderator? No, I do not. Um, maybe one day I will.
17. The law of priorities. Busyness does not equal productivity. Good leaders practice the discipline of prioritizing. This requires them to continually think ahead, to know what's important, to see how everything relates to the overall vision. When evaluating your priorities, ask yourself these questions. What is required? What gives the best return? What brings the greatest reward? Every task that is not on the list needs to be delegated or eliminated.
Priorities are obviously really important. Sometimes it can be hard to know where to focus your energy and what to do and when to do it. A tip that I saw recently was that someone said, imagine that you only had 2 hours to work for the whole week. What would you do in those 2 hours? And that's a good way to see what your highest impact actions should be. So for me, the answer was that I would make a bunch of short form videos. I'd make as many reels as I could in those 2 hours because that's such an important part of my job now. If you don't follow me on Instagram, definitely do. I've been posting on there a lot more lately, Natalie Fulton Official. And then I'm also doing the Pro Animal Future Instagram, which is just Pro Animal Future. Really fun videos on there. So I definitely recommend that. But that's what I would prioritize. And you also have to think beyond that. Like, what are these reels about? Like, they should be about slaughterhouse workers and the problems with our food system and things like that. So, yeah, I can definitely see how priorities are really important. And I think a lot of people do confuse being busy with being productive and they'll waste all this time on meetings and it just seems really stupid to me. So, always yeah, always make sure that the thing you're doing actually needs to be done. Sometimes I can really get stuck in just watching Instagram videos or watching YouTube for no reason. And I think trying to move away from that is really important. Garuda Legends, good faith question. Do you think that vegans' hardest roadblock is not actually meat eaters, but the 22% of the human population of vegetarians that won't go vegan or eat meat? I don't think that the vegetarians are our biggest roadblock. I think the biggest roadblock is just the immense power in the meat industry and just how much influence they have. So I think that that's really where we need to focus. I think that it's more important to focus on kind of breaking down the meat industry than turning everyone vegan because that apparently isn't working. Do you know about how AI is being used for animal rights activism? I use AI quite a bit. It's I don't know about it in like the broader context of animal rights, but I use it a lot for editing, for sound mixing, and there's this app called Opus where you put a log form video in and then it spits out all these shorts you can use. It's so cool. So anyone could do that, right? You could just find like Gary Yourofsky's speech and then put it through Opus, and then you've got all these clips and it tells you how viral they could be, and then you could post those. So there's definitely a lot we can do with AI, and I encourage everyone to look into how it can be helpful for you.
18. The law of sacrifice. The life of a leader can look glamorous to people on the outside, but the reality is that leadership requires sacrifice. Some people have to give up beloved hobbies. Many give up aspects of their personal lives. Some give their actual lives. The greater the leader, the more he must give up.
Whew, that law is very important. Obviously, leadership does take sacrifice, and it's definitely something that I've noticed as I've become more involved with animal rights. I don't take weekends anymore. I don't really travel for non-related activism stuff. It's hard for me to like turn off the part of my brain that wants to do activism. It means being away from my husband more than I'd like at some points as well. So there's definitely sacrifices that I've made, but I think that I'll obviously have to sacrifice a lot more in the future. But I wanted to share a story about this law. And I don't want to tell you guys who it's about because I think that might be mean, but I think it's just a really good example of bad leadership within the animal rights movement. So this was probably about 5 or 6 years ago. There's a leader of a big animal rights organization, and he was traveling around the US and meeting activists who were involved in his organization and doing all this stuff for animals. And he was going to stay with this woman in Denver. She had an extra room in her house and she was so excited about him staying there. And she rolled out the red carpet, made all this nice food, was really excited. And then he shows up and he's like, "Oh, hey, like, can I smoke weed in here?" And she says, "No, this is actually a sober house, no drugs, no alcohol, but there's a park across the street. You can smoke weed there. It's totally legal. So yeah, you can go smoke and then come back here." And he, instead of just smoking in the park, he decided to rent a separate house, to spend hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars, to rent a house for a week because he didn't want to smoke in the park and have the free room. And I just think that's like such an irresponsible waste of money. I think it's really disrespectful to the person. And it's also like, man, you can't go a night without smoking weed. Also, this is not about James Aspie. I know people are going to think it is. It's not James Aspie. That's the only hint I'm going to give you. But yeah, I think that was just, and then the organization, I don't want to say has fallen apart, but has definitely lost a lot of momentum. And I think that lack of leadership could be why. Pig's Dream, Natalie Fulton, can I use Opus on your videos to post? Absolutely. Post whatever you want. Just give me credit in the description. And that is all I ask for with that.
19. The law of timing. Good leaders recognize that when to lead is as important as what to do and where to go. Every time a leader makes a move, there are really only 4 outcomes. The wrong action at the wrong time leads to disaster. The right action at the wrong time brings resistance. The wrong action at the right time is a mistake. The right action at the right time results in success. 20.
That one seems to be the most difficult for me to really understand because it's hard to know what time you should do things. And I think that maybe we could look at this kind of bigger picture in the vegan movement is like kind of talking about the disruptive stuff that we were just talking about. Maybe these disruptive actions aren't great for right now, but there will be a time in the future when they're really useful. So it would be nice if we had kind of a more cohesive vegan movement as opposed to everyone just kind of doing their own thing. That being said, I do think that change happens more at a local level. That's what this book changed. Justin made a video about it. It's really good. Talks about so it is hard to think about the vegan movement even really being united in such a way. And I think that local change is probably more important and more effective. But yeah, law of timing is tough. I don't really know how to apply it necessarily, but hopefully things will happen and we'll capitalize on them at the right time.
The law of explosive growth. If you develop yourself, you can experience personal success. If you develop a team, your organization can experience growth. If you develop leaders, your organization can experience explosive growth. 21.
This kind of goes back to the law of empowerment and how you should just focus on developing people not as followers but as leaders. And when you meet someone, you can think, will this person ever be a future leader? Can they become an organizer? Can they help post stuff on social media? What are their strengths? What do they need to work on? And I think all of that stuff is so important. And that's another thing that DXE has done well, right? Is they have people who come in and then they encourage them to take leadership and take these roles on. And that's part of why they've been able to grow so much. And I think that's really cool and really impressive. The thing that the book talks about that this video didn't really touch on is that leading leaders is a lot harder than leading followers because leaders have an idea of what they want to do and they have kind of their own vision. So it's a bit more difficult to, delegate and kind of tell them what to do, but it's still more valuable than just having a bunch of followers who are going to just do whatever you want, but not really take initiative and make change for themselves. How do you hang out with your non-vegan friends? What things do you guys do together? Man, so most of my friends are not vegan in New Orleans, at least. In other cities, they're pretty much all vegan. What do we do together? So it's kind of harder now that I don't drink as much. We used to just kind of go to bars and drink a lot together. I still go to bars and just don't really drink alcohol, but I don't see my friends as much as I used to. And I think that's more because of my age and just kind of everyone in their 30s getting older. We don't necessarily want to go out, stay up late every night like we used to. This past weekend, my friends, we had like a roller skate dance party at the park. I don't roller skate or dance really, but still hung out. It was like a wedding thing. And then we went to a bar and I didn't drink, but it was still a good time. And then there was a wedding yesterday. So that's an example of something we did. My favorite things to do with people are to go for bike rides. I love biking with my friends. I think it's so much fun. And just walking by the river in New Orleans. There's always festivals and things to do here. So yeah, you just got to be creative. You can do whatever you want with your non-vegan friends. I would love to make vegan friends here in New Orleans, but I really don't socialize as much as I used to because I feel like I would just rather work on making videos and improving my content than doing that. Don't you think vegans are going too strong and have bad timing when mentioning descendants of slaves, female rights, and LGBT rights when most of them were never vegan? I'm not sure if you're asking about like slave comparisons or comparing to women's rights, but I don't see a problem with that generally. I tend to go for the women's rights because I'm a woman and I've actually found a lot of success by telling people like, hey, this is no different from women's rights because men didn't want to give women rights and people, not all men, and people don't want to give animal rights, but rights should be granted based on these objective criteria and not whether or not the oppressors want to give them rights. I think that's actually a really great strategy. I didn't start thinking seriously about veganism until someone brought up the slave comparison. And the way they brought it up was saying, hey, morality evolves along with culture. It used to be culturally normal to have slaves. I'm from the South in the US. There was a slave market 2 miles from where I live. And I just started thinking, like, would I have been part of that? And what does that say about me that I'm going along with this atrocity of animal agriculture? Does that mean I would have been a slave owner? And I'm not sure if that's like, oh, I definitely would have, but I would hope not. And I think that going vegan shows that you're able to go against the grain of society and go against your culture when it's wrong. And I think that that is very valuable and important. So, yeah, I don't see a huge problem with those comparisons unless, you know, some people do get mad. There can be times when it's tone deaf, and I think that can be a problem too. But as long as you're smart about it, then no problem. No injustice lasts forever. Who else shipped Justin from Debug Your Brain and Natalie together? LOL. Justin is a good friend of mine. I'm married to someone else and he has a girlfriend, so never anything romantic with him, but I do consider him a friend. If you want to know where you would have stood on slavery before the Civil War, don't look at where you stand on slavery today. Look at where you stand on animal rights. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's 100% true, but it seems to be true to me, honestly. What are your thoughts about Brian Johnson? Brian Johnson, the anti-aging billionaire. I actually love Brian Johnson. I don't know why. I know people like to make fun of him and that he's kind of weird, but I think he's great. I don't follow Blueprint, but I tried it for like a week and I was like, "Oh, this is too hard." He has influenced my life. The biggest influence was I got this Whoop watch, which really tracks your sleep, and it's been so useful to me. I love the Whoop. So Brian Johnson has definitely helped my life. I like that he is vegan. He's not completely vegan because he does collagen peptides from animals, which I think is stupid, obviously. But the fact that he's out there doing this and promoting a vegan diet, I think is really, really great.
1. The law of legacy. Success doesn't count for much if you leave nothing behind. A life isn't significant except for its impact on other lives. Create your leadership legacy by putting your organization into the position to do great things without you. The more you try to do in life, the more you will find.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to keep in mind when you're working is like, what if you died? Would your organization be fucked? How can you make sure that the people you work with know how to do what you're doing and feel empowered and things like that? So, yeah, I think that's great.
That leadership makes the difference. Learn the laws, take them to heart, and apply them to your life. People will follow you. If you enjoyed this,
All right. Yeah, so those are the 21 laws. I hope that y'all found this valuable. Like I said last stream, I don't think the laws are irrefutable. I think if you want to refute some of them, that's okay. And there may be things that leaders need to do that aren't covered in the laws. But I do think it was a really good book. I'd recommend anyone to read it. Probably one of the better books I've read in the last 6 months. So yeah, definitely check it out. One Color Rainbow, donate $5. Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate that. By the way, if you guys donate, the money goes toward the Pro Animal Future campaign. So every dollar you donate helps us write postcards to voters. It helps us go out and do voter outreach. We can give out free lemonade and hot dogs and run ads and all this stuff. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that donation. Why isn't Gary Yourofsky doing any more activism? Any insider thoughts? The story I've heard, and I wouldn't call myself an insider by any means, the story that I've heard is that he burned out, right? He burned himself out. He spent 15, 20 years traveling all over the US all the time, giving speeches at middle schools and high schools. And yeah, I don't know why he burned out. It's obviously very unfortunate. He also, actually, now that I think about it, I heard that a lot of it had to do with his social media content because he's so controversial. He kept getting canceled. And I think he didn't like dealing with the fame aspect of it, which is totally understandable. But I don't know what he does now. I would be very curious to learn how he spends his time. Yeah, I wish it's weird. I've been seeing his videos really resurface a lot more on Instagram lately. I don't know who's doing that, but they still go viral. He was a great speaker and he was funny. He does a lot of appeals to nature, which I don't like, about how humans are herbivores, and I don't think we should be talking about that kind of stuff at all. So that I obviously disagree with him on some stuff, but yeah, he was an important voice for animals, and maybe one day he'll come back. I'm actually kind of curious to watch some of his videos right now, react to, since we are done with the leadership. So let's see if there's anything else we want to watch. Condemning white people. All right. Yeah, let's watch this one. This seems weird. Um see how this goes.
Problem with that line of thinking, when you go back a couple of hundred years ago in slavery America, and activists like William Lloyd Garrison and Frederick Douglass were trying to abolish slavery, what do you think the majority of white people were saying about blacks? Oh, come on, they're just blacks. They don't look like us. They don't act like us. So they don't deserve any moral consideration whatsoever. They don't deserve their right to be free and their right to bodily integrity. Go back 87 years ago, before the
That's pretty much exactly what we were just talking about. Yeah, I mean, any oppressors throughout history have minimized their victims, just said, oh, they don't matter. They're just black. They're just women. Like, we don't care about them. They don't matter. And that's exactly what we're doing with animals right now. We're just pretending that they are objects. And obviously it's terrible. So yeah. Pigstream, I've been uploading shorts I made from Gary's speech with Opus. That's awesome. Are you the one behind like why that one that went viral that Ben Shapiro responded to? Because that was really good.
The 19th Amendment was enacted giving women the right to vote. When women were trying to obtain their equal say in society, what do you think the men were constantly saying? Oh, come on, they're just women. They don't look like us. They don't act like us. Not as smart as we are. Not as strong as we are. I always love that form of logic from them. Not as strong as we are. So they don't deserve their equal say in society? The moment we start playing this asinine fill in the blank game. Fill in the blank game goes like this. They're just blacks, they're just women, they're just homosexuals, oh, they're just immigrants, they're just Mexicans, they're just Iraqis, they're just animals, they're just cows, and they're just fish. It is an asinine, stupid.
Yeah, he's right. And I appreciate that he's such a great speaker, the way he moves around. He really uses his space well, his gestures. He doesn't just gesture up close, he like goes really far out, which you guys can't even see because I'm out of frame. But stuff like that's really important. He's a very compelling speaker and he pauses. He does a lot of things right. And yeah, I mean, he's got some bangers.
Stupid and invalid excuse to harm somebody else. To commit acts of cruelty and injustice against someone else. Peaceful, compassionate ways of being unjust do not exist. And that's because violence is violence. Cruelty is cruelty, discrimination is discrimination, and premeditated murder is premeditated murder, even if the victims only walk on all fours and have fur and feathers and horns and beaks or gills. So the way we treat the
Absolutely. Ben Shapiro reacted to Yurovsky. Yeah, he did. There was this short of Gary on the Israeli news with that woman, and she says that animals eat other animals, and he says it's unfair that you pick one behavior that you want to emulate and ignore the rest. I see that you're holding a cell phone and you're wearing clothes, and when I came over here, you didn't sniff my ass or something like that. It's like it's really funny. But then he goes into all these appeal to nature. So Ben Shapiro, he barely even reacted. He said I don't even remember what he said. It was so stupid. He basically just watched it and like shrugged. He didn't offer any counter argument. And then most of the comments were all about being pro-life because Gary says something about how lions eat their babies. So I think that's probably what he was reacting to more than anything. Have you been able to turn any of your family or friends vegan? Yeah, for sure. So when I first went vegan, I turned my husband. We weren't married at the time, but he turned vegan because I kept bugging him to watch Dominion, and one day I woke up and he had watched it and he said it was horrible, I'm done, and he's been passionate vegan ever since. A couple of my friends were vegetarian, they went vegan. My parents are a lot more plant-based, they're not vegan, but they've definitely made changes. I haven't turned as many friends vegan as I would like. I typically get the, "Oh, vegans are right, but I don't wanna change." And that's unfortunate, but that's what we're working with. That's why we got to get these laws on ballots for all these lazy people who can't change their lifestyle, but they can, vote for something pro animal. So that's the goal. Appeals to nature shouldn't be used by vegans. Totally agree. Logical fallacies shouldn't be used by anyone. Yep, yep, yep. Don't agree with this view on Palestine, but he is a great speaker. On Ben's channel, it's the first one if you search for veganism. How do you encourage vegans to turn into activists? Most vegans I know just go to potlucks and don't even want to talk about activism. I've noticed that as well. It's honestly why sometimes, like, I feel like when I first went vegan, I thought that if someone was vegan, we were just going to be great friends and they were so cool. And the longer I've been vegan, the more I've realized that that's not true. A lot of people are vegan just because of, they are grossed out by animal products or just because of health or the environment. They don't even really care about the animals. But even the ones who do care about the animals, sometimes they feel as if them being vegan is enough activism for them. They just want to be a good example. I obviously think that's flawed. And in terms of encouraging people to be active, I don't know if I have any good tips. That's definitely something that we're working on. I think what you have to do is provide good actions and good community. And that could be like you say there's potlucks. So having potlucks every couple weeks, but then also doing protests too. Make sure that there's just something going on in the community, whether that's fur protests or foie gras protests, because then people are more likely to get involved in activism. My friends in DC, they do a lot of foie gras and fur stuff. And there was this vegan that kind of hung out with them, and he was very much not ever wanting to do activism. But the more he hung around them, the more he started to do. So at some level, it's just getting people involved and influencing them to stick around and see that their actions are meaningful. There's also so many different types of activism. You could write postcards. You can go to PETA's thing that had just you can basically just send emails to people that helps. You can go to AAM's Instagram and comment on fur and stuff. So I think encouraging maybe some of the lower stakes. Some people are never going to go to protests. Some people are never going to do disruptions, but maybe they'll do something else. So I think it's about finding what works for people.
Animals and each other doesn't even shock me anymore. What's shocking is that the masses are always shocked when they're accused of acting inappropriately. It took 400 years to convince white people in America not to own black people, and another 100 years on top of that to end segregation. And if somebody wants to hang out after class and explain to me why those abolitions didn't take 2 seconds, I'd love to hear about it. Any injustice on that scale can only happen if the general population supports it or turns a blind eye to it. What kind of society?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, what is it? There's some quote about how the world is bad because of the people who sit by and say nothing and just ignore what's happening with animals. And yeah, most people, that's exactly what they want to do when we bring up animal rights or factory farming. They just want to pretend that it's not happening. And I'm sure that was similar back when slavery was a thing. Although there were a lot of people who opposed slavery. It wasn't ever like everyone's okay with this, kind of in the same way that it is with animals. I mean, I know a lot of people oppose animal farming too, but I think that slavery was a bit more contentious throughout history. than animal farming is, unfortunately. But yeah, these things take time. And that's why when people say, oh, we're going to have a vegan world in a generation, it's hard for me to take seriously because I know how long change takes and how far away we are from people even caring about animals. And it's a bummer. And I do think we can make a lot of progress in our lifetimes, but I just don't want people to feel like this is going to happen super quickly. Because when I first went vegan, I thought, oh, everyone's going to go vegan soon. And I was obviously sorely disappointed when most people didn't. And that's, that's just true. And it's a bummer. So change takes time for sure. Did you lose any friendships because of your activism? I don't think I lost friends, but I definitely strained some of my relationships, especially when I first went vegan and I couldn't do street outreach because it was still during quarantine, so the world wasn't really open. So I was only hanging out with like my bubble. And I definitely debated them more and was a bit more aggressive than I should have been. And yeah, it definitely caused a strain to our relationship. And I still feel a barrier there because when someone tells me that doing the shit to animals is okay because they like the taste pleasure, I'm never going to be able to respect that person again. It's just not going to happen. So I don't know if it's on my end or their end, but yeah, I haven't lost friends, but there are people I hang out with significantly less because of how they view animals. And I don't think that that's wrong of me to do. There's another question I wanted to respond to. I think we need to be very particular in the use of the word vegan and emphasize the ethical component. Being plant-based because of disgust or health is not vegan. I mean, yeah, that's true, but like that's obviously not happening because almost everyone in the world thinks of it as a diet. And I don't know if that's vegans' fault or the media's fault or whatever, but it's so hard to change how people think of the word vegan. That's why I think we should just start with a new word like pro-animal and just make it clear that it's about the animals because there's also nothing in vegan that really ties it to animals. Most people don't even think about animals at all when they hear the word vegan. So I don't know if I would say we need to be more restrictive with the word vegan because we also want more people to be vegan. Catherine Klein made a pretty interesting video about that called In Defense of Bad Vegans. And it was just about how the more people use the label, the more it normalizes it and makes it seem easier. And we want to normalize veganism, and making it more restrictive won't do that. So I don't know. It's hard to know exactly what the right thing to do is in a lot of these situations. I find that reminding them of animal agriculture encourages activism. You'd be surprised how many vegans haven't even ever watched slaughterhouse footage. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you probably have more success with me at turning vegans into activists. So that's a good tip. A lot of vegans haven't watched slaughterhouse footage. That's true. And I understand why, because if you already go vegan and you haven't watched slaughterhouse footage, that means you have a very deep connection to the animals. I needed to see the footage in order to make that change. So I can understand why someone wouldn't want to watch it. I think anyone who's not an advocate should watch slaughterhouse footage because that could inspire them to be advocates. For example, when I went vegan, I was vegan for a day and then I watched Dominion, and watching Dominion was when I decided I wanted to be an advocate because I knew that being vegan wasn't going to be enough. So that's really powerful. Definitely. Isn't your husband a YouTuber? Have you shared a channel? He is. I do not want to share his channel because we want to keep our lives separate. Maybe we'll do a collab in the future, but as of right now, we don't want to be like an influencer couple because that's so lame. So yeah, maybe in the future, but I'm not going to share that now. I like pro animal. Yeah, pro animal's good because it makes it clear that number one, it's a political movement. Number two, it's about the animals. And that's really just what we want. Don't you think it's easier to fix a bad branding rather than start one from nothing? That's the main reason I support trying to keep vegan as an animal rights term. I'm not saying I don't support keeping it as an animal rights term, but I actually don't think it's easier to fix a bad brand than to start a new one because there's just so much negativity tied to veganism, and whether that's warranted or not, or even should be a concern of us for us or not, I think is a different discussion. But I think like if there were a product that was really, really terrible and everyone knew it was terrible, it would be harder for that product to improve and then sell themselves than it would be to just create a new product. I don't know a ton about marketing. Maybe I should learn, but I don't know. I think it's harder to convince someone that something is different than it is than to just start a new thing. That's just my intuition.
Society justifies mass murder. Stop thinking that animals aren't victims because they aren't human. It's the mindset of the victimizer that's wrong. And this is what needs to be examined and corrected, because it never changes no matter who the victim is. Have you noticed it always goes something like this? No, you don't count. No, you don't matter. No, I'm more important than you. No, I laugh at the suffering I inflict on you. I'll kill you and your family whenever I want, however I want. Prove to me why I should be kind to you. It is.
Yeah, it's super fucked up. That is so true. And it's also really hard to change because people don't feel like they're oppressors. They don't feel like they're victimizers. They just feel like animals don't matter or shouldn't matter. And it's very hard to break people out of the culture and to show them that this is just history repeating itself. All that we've changed is the actual victims. Notice that you're saying advocate, not activist. Is that on purpose? No, yeah, that's not on purpose.
It's not your right to deny someone else their freedom and their rights, so you can harm them, enslave them, and kill them. That's not what rights are about. That's injustice. There is no counter argument to veganism. Accept it. You can't be right all the time. Apologize for the way you've been living. Make amends and evolve. Move forward. Now, all throughout history, there's a pretty good reason why most people, most good people, have always been on the wrong side of what's right. And that's because the truth has never been accepted overnight. It always has to pass through 3 stages. First, it is mocked and ridiculed. Yeah, people always make fun of something.
Yeah, we're definitely in that phase right now with veganism. It's being mocked and ridiculed for sure. And I get why. It's because people are really defensive. They don't want to change. So they'd rather just mock something than change. My Instagram reels have been doing better lately because I'm focusing more on Instagram. And as a result, I'm getting a lot more just mean comments than I have in the past. And it's a real bummer. I'm trying to not let it bother me, but sometimes it does. And I think that's just because, people want to mock vegans as opposed to actually taking us seriously, because then they'd have to realize what they're doing is wrong, and no one wants to realize that they're wrong. All of my friends are non-vegan, and I'm finding it tough to make new friends that are vegan in my 30s. What do I do? That is a tough situation. I would be curious about where you live. Is there any activism in your community? Because the best thing I can recommend is joining up with other activists, not only because they're vegan, they're actually cooler than other vegans because they're being active. Making friends in your 30s can be tough because people socialize less, they get married, some of them have kids. None of my friends have kids really, which is nice. But yeah, I think the best way to make new friends is to improve your social skills. And I think that's an undervalued trait. When you meet people, do they like you? Are you getting their numbers? Are you trying to hang out with them? One thing that my husband and I have done is we got a bonfire pit, and now we can have people over for bonfires. And it's just like a great social environment that we can provide. And it's been a great way to, kind of meet people and whatnot. But when you're thinking about making first impressions, I could probably talk about this for a while, but the most important thing is to have a fun, positive vibe and to get the other person kind of interested in you, and then to show a lot of interest in them. A lot of people start with the showing interest, and that can actually make it feel like you're trying to get something from them or there's nothing interesting about you. So I would say to improve your overall vibe, get people's numbers. Don't be afraid to initiate. It can feel weird to invite people out to stuff, but it's a lot better than just sitting around and waiting for an invitation. But, if you have your non-vegan friends, there's nothing wrong with that as well, unless you're starting to feel like you don't want to be friends with them anymore. I think it is important for us to maintain healthy relationships, even if that means putting ourselves in situations we don't want to be in sometimes. So yeah, it's kind of a tough balance. Undervalued traits, was that trait required to maintain moral value? Yeah, definitely. If animals had it, I think you're talking about name the trait there. I used to mock veganism so much. It was actually cringy looking back at it. Me too. I actually didn't really mock veganism because I didn't know any vegans, but I mocked vegetarians super hard because in my early life, I knew a couple shitty vegetarians and it colored my perception of them. And I do regret it. But whenever people are super mean to me, I just try to remember that. And I think it helps me empathize with them a little bit more.
And they don't understand, especially when it involves being kind to someone else. Second stage, denial and violent opposition. People refuse to believe there's an atrocity taking place, and they fight tooth and nail to keep the status quo as is. Third stage.
Okay, maybe we're actually in the second stage. That seems to be where we are because people do mock vegans, but I think more than mocking, we experience the hatred and the vitriol and people saying, "Oh, we have to do this to animals." People refusing to look at the scientific evidence that we don't, and that animals are, feeling beings who we shouldn't be doing this to. They want to maintain the status quo because they like paying for animals to be tortured, right? So yeah, I would say maybe we're in the second stage and we're probably going to be here for a while.
Acceptance. There is no longer need to explain it because we all get it. Now, unfortunately, it usually takes hundreds, sometimes thousands of years for the truth to pass through these stages. I'm going to try and do it today in around 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's that's fair. Sorry guys, lost you there for a second. Yeah, Gary Yourofsky is right. That truth has to go through those stages. I think that was a quote from someone else. And am I back now? Y'all see me? Okay, great. So he was a great speaker. I like that he also laid out what he was going to talk about in his speech before he really gets into it. I think it's always good when you're making a speech to make sure that the audience has certain expectations. And can y'all see and hear me right now? I accidentally closed out the tab, but I should be back on. Just let me know if you guys can see me right now. Okay, I am back. Okay, thank you, Garuda. All right, so I am going to actually wrap up pretty soon, though, because we're done with the leadership thing, and I want to make dinner. I'm going to make some pasta, some fancy pasta. It's going to be very good. But I'm happy to answer any other questions. If you guys have questions, drop them in now because I am about to go. And yeah, I'm curious, what is everyone going to be up to this week? Are you doing any activism? Anything you need help with? Yeah, I want to make sure that everyone still knows that I'm happy to hop on calls. If you have questions about activism, since I have a job now, I can offer that service for free. Also, if you have any donations you want to give to Pro Animal Future, now is a good time to do that. We raised $20 last week, which is pretty sick. And tip for pasta, try to bake it. Actually, I was thinking about baking it because I made pizza with the Miyoko's mozzarella and I still have a little bit left over, not enough for like another pizza, but I think it would be good to like make pasta, then pour the mozzarella on and then bake it. But I'm not sure how long to boil the pasta before I put it in the bake. So any tips on that would be good. What are your goals for the rest of the year? I have a lot of goals. I try not to think in terms of annual planning because the deadline is too far out. So I'm a fan of this book called The 12-Week Year, and you have like a 12-week plan, and then that's your year. So that way you're interacting with your goals more and you're planning better. So I think that's a lot better. So my goals for the next 12 weeks are I have like a list, but yeah, basically it involves winning the campaign for Pro Animal Future. That's my top goal for the next 6.5, 7 months. So everything I'm trying to do is working toward that. I'm also trying to just improve my general communication and speaking ability because I would love to get more speaking gigs and increase my reach on social media and build my community more. So those are some of my goals. I appreciate you asking. I love when people ask about goals because it's so important to have a vision and a plan for the future and to want to stick to it. I find it very inspiring and encourage everyone else to do that. The vegan Christian doing lots of activism this week. That's awesome. I love that you're getting out there to fight for the animals. That's really cool. What city are you in? If anyone else is in there, maybe they would want to join you. Animal personhood, I'm going to start sticker activism, but with subversive messaging. Ooh, I'm curious what those would be. I think sticker activism is great. One tip I would have with that is that I used to work at this half vegan restaurant and we put free stickers by the cash register and then people loved them. They would take them and put them on their stuff. And I feel like that's almost a better way to get stickers out to the world as opposed to just sticking them on stuff because I'm not convinced that people really look around them very much. I think people are very wrapped up in their own world. So if you put a sticker on a pole, how many people are going to see that? I don't know. But if you give someone a sticker or if they can take it at a register, then they're going to put it on their water bottle. They're going to see it every day. Maybe they'll put it on their laptop or their bike. And I think it'll have a bigger reach if you do that. Garuda, what would you consider me who will eat vegan meals with vegan people and cook vegan food? I don't know. I guess maybe like an ally. What was your best video so far? That is a good question. I actually think my best video is probably maybe my name the trait video. I thought was really good. I know that a lot of people really hated it, but I think it's some of my best work. Also, the lies that meat eaters tell themselves. I thought that was really well done. I use research in it, which I don't always like use as much research. So I thought that was really fun. And I just think the editing's solid. I think that focusing on improving my editing is always a good idea. But like I said, now I'm focused on short form content, which is a whole different ballgame, but it's pretty fun as well. Anyone here in the San Francisco Bay Area starting We the Free demos? That's awesome. Good job. Curious why you went with We the Free over AV. I know, is there much difference? Is it easier? Put those stickers right on milk jugs and on top of cans. Yeah, is that what you do, Nilf? Because I know you put stickers all over. Make missing calf stickers for milk cartons. That's a great idea. I saw this stand-up bit a long time ago. It was so funny. It was about how we're going too far with cows. You know, we kill them, we take their skin, and we impregnate them and take their baby. And then we put pictures of our missing children on the milk cartons. I don't know if people still really do the milk carton missing child thing, but I just thought that was so funny. It was like such a good point. Can you do a why I'm no longer omnivore video? That could be a good title. Maybe that's a good title. I do want to do a video about why I went vegan. I've been kind of thinking about that for a while. I just haven't done it. I want to go through the whole story of my vegan journey. Earthling Ed has a video. I think it's called How and Why I Went Vegan, the full story. So I'll probably do one similar to that. I was waiting till my platform got a little bit bigger so people actually care why I went vegan. You know, if someone's only got a couple videos and then they're saying why I went vegan, why would anyone care? But I think I might be at the point where people actually do care about why I went vegan, so it may be on the docket. I was also thinking, because a big part of the reason I went vegan was because I watched this show called The Good Place, which talks a lot about morality, and it actually kind of ends with a whole, I don't want to say anti-vegan, but it makes the point that like your individual consumption doesn't really matter that much, which I disagree with. So I thought it would be fun to make a video like how this sitcom turned me vegan, but I don't know if people actually care about The Good Place. Who's the most hilarious vegan stand-up comedian? That guy, Preacher Lawson, I think is pretty funny. Maybe we should watch one of his videos real quick. That could be fun. Preacher Lawson. Vegan. Okay, he's got one called I Am Not Vegetarian. Should be interesting to watch. All right. We're going to watch Preacher Lawson because he's really like the only stand-up comedian that I know of. So if there's more, definitely let me know.
In Indianapolis, Indiana. You said what? Racing. Oh, racing. I was like, oh, I didn't hear it at first. He was like, well, racist. Oh, what? So you better be funny. Whoa. I was like, racing. Okay, all right. Ooh, that was close. That was a close one. What if he did say racist and he repeated it? Racist! You heard me. Is that your food? Finally got your food. What'd you order? Was that a Philly cheesesteak? It's portobello mushroom. What are you, like a vegan? You're a vegetarian? Wow. You still got, is it me? I'm not a vegetarian. I'm vegan.
Hey.
That's not the same thing.
Love that. It's it's funny how vegetarians think of vegans as allies and vegans are like don't feel the same way about vegetarians, which is great. Preacher Lawson is hilarious. David Rams is hilarious too. I actually didn't really like David Rams' stand-up special. I thought I shouldn't like talk shit about him on here because I do like David Rams, but his stand-up I didn't think was very good. I think it takes courage to do stand-up, so I don't want to be like, oh, you know, bad stand-up. But I felt like all he was doing was just trying to say offensive stuff, and I've already heard people make a lot of those same jokes. So I don't know. I'm glad that you like it. Rams is funny. Yeah. I think that he has potential because he works on comedy and he works on writing, and that's great. That's more than I do. I'm not saying I'm funnier than him, but I did not like his stand-up special. That's all I'm going to say about that. Oh, yeah. His satire videos are good. Definitely.
Those are two different, because vegetarians still have friends. So that's a clear difference. I thought you were vegan. You just literally said what I am, you know. You say you eat dairy? Yeah, man. I don't eat dairy. My poop's amazing. People try to roast vegans all the time, but we in the bathroom, in and out, and we out. That's what it sounds like, by the way. You ever hear that? That's a vegan pooping. But
did your guys' poop get better when you went vegan? I don't notice a huge difference with the quality of mine. I've always had pretty decent poops. But yeah, dairy can fuck up your digestive system, I think. So dairy sucks. When you visit a doctor, do you ask for vegan medicine? I don't really take much medicine from the doctor. I think that you could ask for vegan medicine. Definitely, if something's not vegan, try to get it vegan. If they don't have it, veganism is as far as practicable and possible. Don't risk your life. And there are some situations like I think birth control is like never vegan, which is a bummer. I actually don't really think that women should take oral contraceptives because they have all these negative health effects. That's a whole different discussion. So let's get back to Preacher Lawson.
But it's one squeeze, and we are out of there. It's like a smoke screen. Where'd you go? Be vegan, you know. Like it's just fast. Y'all omnivores. Not us. We out of there, man. That's how I get out of conversations. He's gone. He's gone. So how long you been a vegetarian? I'm sorry, she about to eat. A year? What made you become a vegetarian?
My boyfriend's a vegetarian.
Usually it's the opposite. Your boyfriend's a vegetarian. Okay, cool.
What a terrible reason to become vegetarian. Oh, my boyfriend's vegetarian, so I'm going to be like, come on. It should be for the animals and you should be vegan. All right, your poops are better. That's good to know. I'm glad. Mr. Shrub. Hey, Natalie, love your work. Thank you. Appreciate you coming in. I think mine has gotten better, but I also believe my IBS got worse as I got older. That's a bummer. I know that veganism can help IBS, or some people it makes worse because there's so much fiber. So, yeah, good luck to anyone with IBS.
Cool. And okay, nice. How long has he been a vegetarian? Most of his life? Oh, wow. You eat chicken and turkeys? That's not a vegetarian. That's absolutely not a vegetarian.
Jesus Christ. These fucking people,
We
man.
eat chicken and turkeys sometimes. Yeah, that's not how it works, you know?
This is what we're working against, guys. We're working up against people who are out there saying they're vegan, saying they're vegetarian, and eating animals. And it's like, how can we make the world take us seriously if we've got people out there doing this? It's so stupid.
I like women. I make out with dudes sometimes. Sometimes when I'm not, hey, I just lick it. You know what I mean? Sometimes I lick a guy. You know, lick a guy Tuesday. That's it. I'm not looking like I'm not. Hey. All right.
Everyone's gay if you're hot enough. That's what I learned.
All right. So you're not a vegetarian at all. You just decided to eat some mushrooms. All right. I ate some mushrooms before I got up here. I'll just play.
All right. That's not the clip I was thinking of where he talked about what was he talking about? I'm going to close this, make sure I close the right tab. Yeah, he was talking about how he went vegan because he had too many friends and people eat pigs because they're ugly. And then it was just like it was a good bit. I think he was on like America's Got Talent, and that's how he got pretty famous. Eric Rhodes is a vegan comedian. I'll have to wait, it's her and her name's Eric. Is that right? So yeah, I'll have to check that out. But I want to hear about vegan jokes, not just a comedian who happens to be vegan. Give me the vegan jokes. Hope y'all had a great vegan 420 yesterday. Yeah, did y'all have a good 420? I did. It was actually the second wedding that I've been to on April 20th. My cousin also got married on 420. I guess it's a good wedding day, and I smoked a joint. I don't usually smoke, but I did. And I also ate an edible. I only had 2 beers, which is good for me. I know I was talking about how I'm trying to drink less or kind of quit drinking last week, but at weddings, you know, I needed it. I felt like I needed it to be able to get on the dance floor because dancing's hard, you guys. And it's a lot more fun if you've had a little alcohol in you. Not that I'm advocating for drinking alcohol. I'm happy with myself for only having 2 drinks. It didn't really affect my sleep too much, so that is great. Would you date or marry a non-vegan knowing that you would have to deal with them your whole life? I think everyone has different boundaries surrounding this question, and I personally would not marry a non-vegan. I would date a non-vegan because dating someone is actually the best way to kind of get them to change their mind on things, you know? Like that girl said, she became vegetarian because of her boyfriend. If you date a lot of people, think about how many people you could turn vegan. That would be a great way to do that. But I do think that I wouldn't say that it's like not vegan to marry a non-vegan, because if you marry a non-vegan, chances are they're going to eat way fewer animals being married to you than if they married someone else. So you could still be helping with that. The issue that I would see is that if you have kids, are they going to want to raise them vegan, even if they agree to it now? I've seen a lot of people whose spouse changes their minds on that. Also, a big reason that some people go ex-vegan is because they marry non-vegans. We are so influenced by the people around us. So I think it is a big risk, and you need to constantly guard against becoming an ex-vegan. And I mean, there's something so amazing about having a vegan partner who, you know, shares your values, and you both get excited when you go travel and go to different restaurants. It really is amazing. I don't think anyone should deprive themselves of having that experience. So if you have to move cities to somewhere with animal activism to find someone that you can marry, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, dating is definitely different from marrying But I think having a vegan partner is really awesome. And I wish that as many vegans as possible can have that experience because it is very, very nice. All right. Anything else? Or I am going to wrap this up. Everyone give the stream a like. Yeah, definitely. Great. So I'm going to stream next week. I'm not sure what the topic will be. So if you have topic ideas, go ahead, drop them in the comments. And thank you guys so much for coming on the stream. It was really great. It's so fun to be able to connect and get to know my audience better. And I just really like being able to talk a bit more off the cuff about animal rights advocacy and not have to have everything be a well thought out video. So I really appreciate you guys. I hope you have an amazing week, and I will see you next Sunday.